All right. Welcome back to Strongman Personal Finance. I got off work early because I started freaking early because my wife woke me up. And now I'm making live videos before I have to freaking tutor tonight because YouTube doesn't pay me any money. So I tutor on the side. Anyway, today we're going to talk about minimalism and why minimalists always win in the long run. Now, there's all sorts of different definitions of minimalism, and there's different extremities. Like you can be totally minimalist where you have a hut in the woods and you fish, you catch your own fish, and you have like one bed and that's it. You have a bed and maybe a sink. That's one version of minimalism. And then you have like other, steps on the spectrum. Like maybe you're not ultra minimalist, but maybe you have a smaller house. Maybe you have used cars, yada, yada, yada. So you go from minimalism, extreme minimalism, and then you have this spectrum. And then eventually it goes all the way over to extreme consumerism. So most people are more clustered on the consumerism side. But, there's the lucky few that have been fortunate enough to discover minimalism. And the reason that I think minimalists always win is because they focus on things in life that matter, which is, meeting new and interesting and exciting people, going on adventures, and not enslaving themselves to debt. Because in minimalism, you want to basically reduce your expenditures as much as possible. So if you approach life from that standpoint, the less you spend on crap that you don't need, the more money you have to spend either on investing or just, discovering new and exciting things like traveling. For example, let's say you're the average American. What do? They immediately go to college. They get some kind of degree. It could be a good degree. It could be a bad degree. And boom, they're probably taking out student loans because mommy and daddy weren't minimalists. Mommy and daddy were also consumerist. So mommy and daddy didn't save any money for college. So the child, they're pressured by their school to go to college, their high school to go to college. Got to get a degree. Doesn't matter what it is. And then boom, they graduate college and they're in massive freaking debt. And then on top of that, they start applying for jobs. They're like, oh, I got to get a job. Eventually they meander into a job. Hopefully they don't get paid nearly enough what they expect to be paid. And boom. But they have an income now. So what do they go and do? They start racking up their credit cards, trying to enjoy their youth and get experiences. So they're racking up their credit cards, doing whatever stupid crap, going to the clubs, socializing. And then they go buy a freaking car. Okay. They buy a car, probably a new one, maybe in the mid-20s, but still new. And it's a lot of freaking money. So now they have student loan debts. They have this lifestyle where they have to, go out and party and spend money on BS and buy nice clothes. And of course, they're not saving anything because they're too young. And then they go and buy a freaking car. All right. And eventually they get a couple raises, maybe into their 30s. So they're like 30, 31. And they're like, oh, maybe I should buy a house now. And so they go and they basically look at their income and they say, how much house can I qualify for? What is the maximum amount of house that the bank will approve me for? And then they go and they buy a freaking house they can barely afford. So boom, they have student loans. They have this lifestyle. They probably have a wife or a husband and maybe children on the way and credit card debt. And now they have a house. Now, when you have all these things, what are you doing? You're paying money every month. You have to pay your mortgage every month or your house goes bye-bye. You have to pay your car payment or your car goes bye-bye. You have to pay your student loans because if you don't do that, well, the government's going to maybe garnish your wages because they can never be forgiven, at least for now. Maybe they'll change the laws. So basically, you're almost enslaved to these different things that are costing you money because if you stop working, or you try to take time to do something else that you might actually enjoy, you can't do it because you're enslaved to the debts. Now, you compare that to a minimalist, somebody who realizes that the more payments you have, the less flexibility you have to do anything. The minimalist, they'll go to college, maybe they'll go into a trade, and they'll go to a community college, and they'll work on the side. And if they're lucky, maybe their parents saved a little bit of money. But if they didn't, they'll work, and they'll be able to pay the majority of their college in cash. And if they have any student loans, it's probably insignificant, especially compared to the average person who just finances everything when they go to college. Then they graduate college. They land their first job. They barely have any student loan payments. Now, instead of like engaging in the party lifestyle where you go out in the town and you buy new clothes, you say, screw that. I've got student loans. I need to pay these off. So instead of like protracting your student loans, you pay them off. You aggressively attack them. And boom, student loans are gone. Now you're like, okay, well, I need a car. Maybe I've been using public transportation. Well, do you get a new car? No, you don't. You get a really cheap used car that's still like safe. So now you have this used car, okay? Maybe you spend $5,000 on it, or maybe even 10 grand. Maybe you have to finance it, but hopefully you don't have to, because you've had so much money freed up from not paying student loans that you can buy a car for cash. Or if you finance it, it's not going to be that much of a finance. So boom, you get rid of your student loans. There's no payments there. Boom, you buy a car for cash. Boom, you're avoiding the consumerist lifestyle, and you're not getting sucked into that, oh, I got to go out every weekend and, spend $100 on freaking alcohol, which I'm guilty of that. I've done that before. You're not buying new clothes. And before you know it, you have no payment. Your only payment is your rent and probably, like healthcare and food. But compare the minimalist to the person that incurred all these debts when they were young. So let's say you have two 30-year-olds. One is basically 100% debt-free, and they have a ton of income freed up. And then you have another that's a complete slave. All right. So even though that person that, likes to consume, they're having a great time and they have nice stuff, they're selling out their youth. They're trading their youth for a future of poverty, because the older and older they get, the less likely they are to want to work, because everybody gets tired of work. I know people say you can love your job, but the vast majority of people are not obsessed with their job. And even if they like it, like I like my job, it doesn't mean that you're going to want to do it forever. But the thing is, if you don't like your job, or you want to retire, or you want to go do things, you can't, because you have all these payments. You're screwed. Whereas you compare that to the minimalist, like, I'm going to brag a little bit here. Me, I got a lot of money saved up. So let's say I want to take a month off from work. Well, I can do that. Let's say I want to go on this nice vacation. I can do that because I don't have a lot of payments. I was a minimalist when I was young, and I still apply those principles now, and I have all this extra money. And it's not that I make a ton of money. I'm just an average guy. I'm not Mr., privileged millionaire. All my money came from just being cheap as hell and not spending money and not getting payments, not going into debt. And now as I'm getting into my 30s, and into my 40s, I can look at my other peers that spent all their money in their youth having experiences, which is just like going to a bar and getting drunk. Yeah, it's such an experience. Wow, you're so cool. All these experiences they had. But then as they get older, they get tireder, and they're like, oh, and they have to go to work, because if they don't, all their precious things, their car, their big house, it's all going to go away, okay? And you don't want that, because you may think when you're young that that's the only time in your life you're going to be able to enjoy yourself. Well, I 100% disagree. I think your youth should be dedicated to working your butt off. And then if you work hard in your late teens and 20s, by the time you turn 30 or even 35 or 40, you're going to be sitting really good. And you're not dead when you're 40, okay? If you exercise, you're not a fat sloth. If you're not a fat sloth, you actually will be able to do a lot of things and still be pretty fit. So if you're 40 and you have no payments except for maybe your mortgage, you can enjoy yourself. Maybe you don't like your job. Maybe your job sucks and you're tired of it. Well, if you're someone that consumes all the time, you're a consumerist, you're stuck because you have to make all that money. But if you're a minimalist, let's say you hate your job. Well, you can quit your job because you don't have any payments and you don't need a lot of money to support your lifestyle. You have flexibility. You have freedom. And then eventually you get older. You get into your 50s. Now, when you get into your 50s, if you're a minimalist and you save diligently, you're maxing your tax advantage accounts or you're doing as much as you can and you're generating side incomes, I would say in your 50s is a reasonable time to retire early. So you get into your 50s, you're a minimalist. You're like, okay, you know what? I think it's time I retire. I've paid off my mortgage. I don't have any freaking payments. My kids are out of the house. Boom, now I can retire and I can enjoy the remainder of my life. Now compare that to the consumerist who had so much fun drinking and maybe going to Canada once or Cancun for a weekend or spring break. And they have all these nice things. Well, they're still going to have to work at their crappy job because they don't have an option. They're screwed. Now, can you imagine if you don't like your job now in your 20s or 30s, can you imagine yourself in your 40s or 50s or 60s still working that job? That sounds like absolute hell. I would rather suffer in my 20s, save diligently, avoid debt, and then in my 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and maybe even 80s, I can do things that I enjoy. I have the freedom and flexibility. But if you're a consumerist, you're going to work your whole freaking life. You're never going to get out of that mindset. You'll be 60 years old. You'll be like, well, I need to get this next promotion because if I get this next promotion, then I can buy this awesome new Jeep that I've always wanted. So here you are going to work every day, commuting 8 hours a day, putting up with the office politics. You're 60 years old. You don't have any money freaking saved. You're screwed. Whereas the minimalist, what is he doing or she doing? You know, we accept all genders on this channel. What is he or she doing? Having a good time, retired. Maybe they're going on a Euro trip. Maybe they're going to see Asia. Maybe they're doing, you know, a job or like a volunteering or something they've always wanted to do. They don't have to worry about it. They're free. And yeah, you may be a little old in your 50s, but you're not dead, okay? Don't listen to that BS that if you turn 50 or 60, you're going to be old and dead. If you work out and you stay fit, you don't sit on your butt and eat a bunch of crap, you're going to be fine, right? So just ask yourself this question. Do you want a little bit of suffering now, a little bit of minimalism in your youth to have a lifetime of rewards? Or do you want to, you know, enjoy your youth because you think you're going to die at like 30 and then just incur all these massive debts simply to look good to other people that don't care about you? And by doing that, you're basically enslaved to your job for your entire life. So you're going to turn 60, maybe even 70, and you still might be working. And I can tell you, I'm not working when I'm 70. I'm just going to put that out there. Okay. So that's just something to consider. Don't be swept into consumerism. When you see somebody drive by in a nice car, like some stupid, you know, boy in his freaking, I don't know, whatever stupid sports cars they buy nowadays, you should laugh and say that guy is a broke loser and he is a slave to debt and consumerism. If you see one of your friends, oh, I got a promotion and I make all this money now, I'm going to buy this massive house. I'm going to sell my current house, which I bought for no reason. I'm going to buy this massive house. So they take a loss in their current house. Then they go buy a new freaking house that, you know, basically barely matches their new income at their promotion. Laugh. It's hilarious because while they're trying to look good, you're building this massive fortune. Like imagine having like, you know, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. And then you see somebody drive by in a nice car. You're like, okay, I mean, I could buy that car in cash. I don't care. Why would you care? The stuff like that is just meant to impress people. And if you're a broke loser, I guess, okay, it does. But if you're actually a true minimalist and you understand how to build real wealth, you're going to know that it's a bunch of BS, right? So that's that. Minimalists always win. Sacrifice in your youth. Save freaking money. And, you know, when you're 30, I know some people think you're going to be dead, but by then you're going to be pretty much set for life. And then you can actually live the rest of your life with the knowledge and peace of knowing that you're never going to have to worry about money again. Or you can do the opposite and, you know, be an idiot in your youth, and then you can just be a debt slave your whole life, right? So minimalists always win. It's the truth. You guys have a wonderful day. Oh, and buy my book. All right, maybe I'll do one more video, and then that'll be that because I have to cook dinner and tutor. So later.